So I say, whatever people are doing in 21st century, do the opposite. So people taking selfies, be private. Promote your business. Don't promote your selfies.
Hey guys, today I'm bringing you in Seaton Lin, and this dude just got a killer story. I don't want to take away from his highlight reel, but he's done some pretty cool things, so I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell his story, and take us all through his journey. Seaton, welcome to the show, man. Catch us up on who you are, what do you do, all that fun stuff.
Thank you, Donnie. Thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm a filmmaker based in Los Angeles. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I've been out in LA for quite a while, almost 20 years now. Yeah, so my journey just kind of started when I was in my early 20s at the time and living in Texas. And everyone told me that, if I wanted to work in film and be a creative person, that I needed to head out to California. And before I turned 30 and got married and kids, and, if I never did it at that time, then I would never do it. So it kind of scared me in a way. And so I just ran out to California, didn't know anyone, and just try to hustle it out there and work in the advertising and entertainment field.
Well, so it's like buying a motorcycle, right? If you don't buy it before you're married, you're not getting one,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I felt like I had a certain amount of time to do something, but this is prior to the internet and social media just really taking off. So this was kind of like the early 2000s, and I felt like a lot of things were different at that time compared to what's going on today.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So why did you want to get into the film business? I mean, is that something you wanted to do as a kid, or was this something you found as you got toward the end of high school, into your 20s? I mean, what happened?
Well, I've always been a creative person. So whether it was, playing music, writing poetry, playing the band for a long time, I was, I used to draw a lot, collect comics and things of that sort. So it was always in me when I was a little kid. I guess when I started to graduate college and try to find a profession, I found that to be somewhat difficult in a way because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So, and I've always appreciated film, but I had a strong music background, so I kind of tied the two together. I thought filmmaking, video, and all that was a perfect medium to combine, writing, acting, photography, music all together. So I found it to be the most challenging, I guess, format for me to try to express myself.
No, I love that. And you worked on some pretty big films. What all films have you worked on that people have heard of?
Well, I guess I have worked on quite a few studio films. I worked on American Reunion, I think the last one, a little Fockers, the last third one, I guess they put out at the time. And I did some of the behind the scenes stuff for iRobot with a company. That was more of the post work. And I also worked on Imagine That, I think one of Eddie Murphy's last movies.
Nice. So what was it like as a younger guy leaving home, going out to California and, trying to establish a homestead, trying to establish a name, all of that? Walk us through that journey.
Well, it's quite difficult. Anytime you leave home and, without a support group or a network, it's always kind of scary. So I felt like I was just kind of jumping into, this black hole in a way. And, it was easy, I guess it was easier when I was young at the time, I was around 24, but looking back on it now, I kind of wish I did it either earlier if I went to college out there, or if I did a little later in my life, if I had some success. So I kind of went out there in a time when, people were starting their careers and already built a network through college or school or people they grew up with. So not having that support was a little tricky to kind of navigate. And honestly it took about, I'd say, a good decade just to kind of make friends and find my way around and just secure some work and just kind of just build a reel, build a portfolio of that sort. It took a long time, and it's still going on too. So.
Right. It's always going to be that game, right? Of meeting the right people, finding yourself in the right networks and constantly going after it. So you get to California, you're 24 years old. Did you have a job or anything lined up when you first went out there, or did you just pack up the car and get out there?
I mean, I did talk to some people, but I didn't have anything lined up really at the time. And I got lucky in a sense. When I first arrived, I got a job at the city of Glendale, which is a small city right outside LA. And I did a lot of the government access channel stuff, shooting, editing. And so that kind of gave me some opportunity to have some security in a way, and also just kind of learn on the job and just kind of get to know the city, know the area. So, I got lucky where a lot of my friends, they kind of went into the more studio route and then trying to work their way up through the corporate system. But I kind of just did it at the ground level and working in the city, and later on just kind of freelancing around town, stuff like that.
That's crazy. So you said, it took you a decade to figure this all out. I can't imagine those years were all sunshine and rainbows as you're trying to figure this out. Walk us through that decade. What happened?
Yeah, it was, it's very deceiving because when you're out in California, the weather's beautiful and it's always sunny and it's great. And I would say there's always distractions out there if you're trying to do things. If you really want to do something, for yourself in a way, build a business or whatever, if you don't come from money in that sense, there's a lot of distractions. So, during my time, I worked at the city, and then later on I went to another company, and the hours are crazy there. There's no real regulation or rules in a way. It is kind of like the Wild West. So, I could be working 12, 20, 36 hours straight sometimes on things and barely getting paid. And I thought, why am I doing this? And I realized, well, it's because I feel like some of the best people and the talent go out there, and also some of the worst people go out there too. So it's kind of a mixture of both. But during the time, over the course of 10 years or more, I got to learn a lot, and I realized that even if you feel like you're achieving something, the floor could fall out underneath any moment in a way. So around that time, I guess when the Great Recession hit, that's when things started to change, on top of with social media coming up at the time. And what I like to always say is that the first thing to kind of get hit through that was creativity and marketing and things of that sort. And because people didn't want to pay for it anymore. And now you have a generation of people that don't pay for stuff. But in a way, things need to change, and it's good in a sense to kind of grow from that. But it was really hard to navigate, So once that happened, that's when the real downturn for me kind of took its course.
Well, and walk us through the downturn. For some people that collapse, I know for me, the company I work for went bankrupt, bank called all of our notes, and it was a complete mess. We survived it, and then ultimately the company ended up shutting down later. But, walk us through that massive downturn. Cause, in truth, I think we're heading for another one here soon anyways. We've been living too nice and too high on the hog, if you will, for too long that we're about to get punched in the face. So, what was it like for you as the downturn happened? You're living in California, the rock star lifestyle, if you will. What happened?
Well, I guess what happened was that once social media came about and, the YouTube and all that kind of stuff took off, it became kind of this, how do I say it, like a user-generated content in a sense where it was more about branding and personalities and less about actually creating a product. Or, for people like me who wanted to be a filmmaker, it was very different in a sense because the platform took over. And I always say a couple of things happened, like the smartphone took off, and once the front camera came in place, that's when all the whole selfie culture started and all of that. So people use that excuse when the Great Recession hit that there was no more budgets for things, right? So, why would I pay for this when I get my cousin, or my nephew, whatever, can do the same thing, but they don't see the difference in the quality. So at that point, it was like, it got really hard to secure work. And I actually opened up a company at that time. So we were working with different agencies on different commercials and whatnot. And all of a sudden they were like, well, there's no more money. We don't want to pay for this, or what they wanted to pay for, they would want more, right? So, you had to do extra favors, and eventually we just closed up shop. And then I was left with a ton of debt.
How long did you have that company?
For about 6 years.
Oh, wow.
6 years more. So, when you have a small company, I was basically living there like 7 days a week, just working till 1 a.m. every morning, just rolling in at 8 or 9 the next day. It was just trying to make the company work. So after that point, when we closed it, I was left with a ton of debt, and then I had to go into the freelance market. And at that point, I was much older compared to, people who were entering around 24, 25. And so even though I had experience, but my rate or whatnot, people didn't want to pay that. And at that point, it became a real struggle to just find, work that was consistent in a way.
And your entire world's there at this point. I mean, your family's still in Houston, and so your support system's there. So here you are in California, shutting down your company, trying to do the freelance gig, which is, you're this, many years older than these kids coming up, and the kids, and I call them kids, but they're trying to just get a resume together. So money's not that big of a deal, and you're trying to make a freaking living at this point. How did that hit you on your psyche? I mean, and that had to be a mental blow as you go through all that.
Oh yeah, it totally was. I mean, because I'm at the age where I'm in between like Gen X and millennials. So
right.
I'm just like right at that little edge of it. So I understand like some of the attitudes of the millennials, and I also understand stuff about the Gen X people because I kind of remember both, that time period. But I always say like I kind of came about at the digital age. And what happened was I saw it when I first moved to LA, when things went from analog to digital, and people that were of the older generation, or who are baby boomers or whatever, working in the creative field, could not understand the digital workflow or digital tools, and then they just got completely left behind once the 2000s kind of came about. So for me, it was more like the age of like social media that came about, and so it was. I didn't understand like why people wanted to take selfies and do everything of that sort. And so it was very different. It was hard for me to wrap my head around it a little bit. Like, why would I want to just, for me, when I would create something, it would take a long time, or try to put a lot, invest my own money into something that was, that I wanted to emulate, that I was always, liked about other filmmakers or whatnot. But that wasn't the case anymore. It's more about like quantity over quality in a way, in the metrics, right? So I just didn't understand that world. And now I feel like we're kind of past that again. So, but it was damaging because it was, you're trying to find your place in it, and you're just asking yourself like, why aren't things working out? And you kind of blame yourself, like, what am I doing wrong? Or, you feel inadequate.
Yeah, that's tough, man. That's tough. So how long did you freelance?
I did freelance earlier before I started my company. And so I've probably freelanced at that time, maybe about 4 years or so.
Oh, wow.
And I started my company. So it was about 6 years. So I was kind of out of the job market for a good decade, and then now even longer. So, I haven't really had a job, I would say, for, almost more than a decade at this point.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think I know the answer to this, but could you ever see yourself going back and getting a job?
No, I can't.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Now it's just like I think telecommuting and working remote, the companies that do that are smart and moving ahead. And I think what was missing before was a work-life balance. And I can't waste my life in traffic. That's
right.
Especially in a place like LA, or, even like Houston or Dallas, the traffic's pretty bad too. So it's
dude, I totally get that, because there's so many times when I'm making, and of course I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. And if I got to go from Fort Worth to Dallas, I mean, there's 3 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
And in that 3 hours, I could have done podcasts. I could have done conference calls. I could have been building something, but your windshield time, it absolutely destroys productivity through all that. So you'll go from the freelance world. Do you then start your own business again?
No, what ended up happening was so when I was trying to freelance, I thought, well, and I was at this point, I felt like I was hitting rock bottom. I got rid of my place, and I just downsized everything. I was going broke, but I had some money saved up, just like a small cushion. And I was kind of tapping into that, and I thought, this isn't working out. So I thought maybe now I should go back to Houston, just find a job. I had some friends there. My family's there. It'd be good to kind of just, regroup and see what happens. And so I go back to Houston, and I set up 2 interviews. Right? Well, actually, the first one I tried to set up. It didn't even happen. The guy just completely flaked on me. So the second one, about a year later, I thought, okay, well, I'll try again. And, promises were made that I got the job. And then when it came down to it, they just didn't want to have me on for budgetary reasons. And I already had my place packed. And at that point, I thought, well, I tried twice. So I thought, okay, I'm not going to try a third time. This is not working. And I thought, you know what? If I'm stuck in LA, then I will just try to make the best of it. And my friend at the time said, you know what? You should make your film. you always wanted to make a feature film. And I thought, fuck it. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to go for broke. And I just took my savings and just put it all into this project. And for the past, I'd say 3 years now, I've been working on it. And as soon as that happened, things changed now. So it was very different.
I want everybody listening to understand that is once you picked a path and said, you know what, this is where I'm going, right? This is the thing. Then the universe showed up and said, okay, let's go. So you go all in and you're going to create this feature film. Walk us through, because this is badass.
So it was from a friend who's a much younger than me, an actor guy, and he told me, we worked together before on smaller projects, and he said, you should just go for it. Like, what else are you going to do? And I thought, you're right. And I knew that, like, as a first time filmmaker, no one's going to invest in me. And so, I always thought, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And so I thought, you know what? I'm just going to take my savings and I'm just going to go for broke. That's it. Like, if I fail, I fail, but at least I failed and I knew I tried. So during that course, losing all that money, I wouldn't say losing it, but it vanished quickly from my bank account in seconds. So that was like the scary part. But once I realized, like, that money was sitting there for a reason. I always say it was there for a rainy day, but it just happened like I had a few rainy years. And then I realized too, it was like once that money was gone, it was like, it's just kind of made up. It's really just made up. So if I had a few more zeros in my bank account, that means I'm a better person in society, right? But it's just a tool. That's what I thought. And it just gave me the freedom to actually pursue something and move in a different direction, kind of pivot. So now I'm finishing that film and, I've had more opportunities kind of grow from it, different kind of opportunities. And I just kind of approach life and people in a different way now. Whereas like, I don't think of like trying to find a job anymore.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, which means you've embraced the full entrepreneur mindset at this point. And, what happens to most entrepreneurs, man, is once they get into it, and success or not, it's very hard to go and put yourself back in that whole thought process of working for somebody else. So what's the name of this movie coming up?
It's called Rumor from Ground Control, and it's my first feature film. It's about a female investigative journalist who uncovers the death of an astronaut.
Oh, wow. So, okay. All right. And did you write this story or?
Yeah, I wrote it and directed it. Yeah.
Okay. And it's a feature film, so it's going to be released when?
Probably sometime later this year. So I'm just finishing it now. So I'm hoping maybe a fall release or, end of the fall or so around that time.
So do you get to do, what is it, the Japanese Palace out there? What's the theater? Everybody launches the
big... Man's Chinese Theater.
Yeah. You get to release it there? Is it that big feature or?
It's an independent feature. It's pretty small. We just had a little showing in Beverly Hills, but I'm probably going to try to get on iTunes, Amazon Prime, and, and just try to keep going. And the next one, just keep that momentum going. And
how were the reviews from the small showing?
Oh, it was great. The crowd, the audience loved it. And, I would say it's a very different kind of film. Originally, I wanted to shoot it in Houston because it's, dealing with astronauts and stuff like that. So it kind of made it more about California in the end, just because I thought when I was going to move back, that I could shoot it there. But the second one I want to shoot in Texas. So.
Can I be an extra?
Oh yeah, of course. I want to film in Dallas too. So.
Oh, dude, perfect. I'll be an extra in the background. What's it like going through that entire process of shooting a movie and working with actors and trying to bring a script to life? I'm not that creative of a person. I mean, I can stand in front of audiences and talk to thousands of people, and that doesn't bother me. But the thought of acting or dealing with actors, just not something that I roll out of bed going, that's exactly what I want to do. Walk us through that process of what it's like taking the story to film and then dealing with all the actors and their personalities.
Well, it's pretty much like running a business. It's running a small business in a way, because I had to form the corporation, which I already did that before, having experience when I ran my own company, and then also dealing with the finances, and then from the writing part and directing and filming and editing and all that was kind of my background anyway. So that was just like my skill set. And then, but working with actors is kind of like you're building a team of people. And I always think of it as like a small family in a way. and you kind of come out of it going, everyone's trying to create something good. And through that process, you really get to know people and learn about their personalities, their quirks and everything. And at the end of it, it's like it's a celebration in a way that everyone shared this moment together. Yeah. So I equate it with like, it's almost like creating your own family and also running a small business.
Right.
And during that process, I always say it's kind of that creative process. I always think of it as having, flow in a way where you just kind of lose yourself in that moment. And there's like no other experience. And I feel like that's what athletes have, or performers have, or if you're like writing or doing anything that you love doing, I find that's like the greatest feeling.
Right. That's awesome. So you're going to take this, it's releasing the end of this year. I'm going to try and get it on the iTunes, get it on Amazon. You can try YouTube, Reddit all. I know that's a new one that's really going. So live streaming coming up. What happens with after? Do you have other films in the hopper that you're going to be trying to produce?
Yes, I have a lot of ideas, and I'm just right now I'm working on the second one and working on the script. So, and then I know I can't repeat what I did for the first one, because the first one was a very special case where I basically just kind of went for it in a way. So the second one, I'm really trying to build up again, but think of it, maybe bringing on investors and just, taking it a step further and just like doing it in baby steps and just being realistic about it. And in the meantime, still trying to find, freelance work and being creative and just staying creative, so.
And is that how you funded all this? Is you've kept up freelancing on the side to fund this film? I mean, have you done it all yourself?
Yeah, pretty much. So from day one, from my very first job, I always try to put a little bit of money away. And at the time I didn't know what for, right? So it was just kind of like, I knew I needed to just do, make sure I have some kind of savings. And, I'm not a finance guy by any means, but that's just kind of what happened. And over time, it just kind of accumulated over years. And I would say it took me like 10 years to make this movie in a way, but it really didn't. But, the money part of it. And so I just, it taught me something about money, and it gave me a good education in the sense that it's just a tool, and during that course, I went ahead and started to take a finance course and try to learn more about investments and stocks and, all kinds of stuff. So.
No, that's huge. I just love how life teaches so many lessons, sometimes harsher than others, but, it's those experiences that form us and shape us into where we're going and who we're becoming. What was it like working on some of those other major films? You get lost in the sauce, you're just, doing post-production. I mean, what's that experience like?
It's wonderful. I mean, it was really strange because a lot of my friends kind of worked through that studio system, just kind of working their way into it. Whereas I came in already as a designer per se. And then at that point later on I had my company. So my experience was very different, and where it was kind of like living a fantasy in a way. It was being on the set and just, seeing all the movie stars. And it was a lot of fun. I had a great time and great experience, and it's just, the scale of it is so huge. It's, it's very hard to imagine ever being at that level, but glad to have an inside look. I got to see how they operate, but it's very, it's kind of very systematic in a way where everybody has a little role, and it's every part is very specialized and stuff. So it's very much run like a corporation, like a very strict corporation.
Now, I know me, and if I'd worked on one of those films, when it came out in a movie theater, I'd be the last guy sitting there watching the credits roll to see if I can see my name on the screen.
Yeah.
Did you do that at all, or?
Actually, I didn't, because it wasn't any kind of films that I would like normally watch, but I watched them on, on TV or DVD at the end, so.
And then do you do the screenshot in Facebook? Hey, look, there's my name in the.
Oh yeah, definitely. I saved it all, and yeah, all that stuff too. So.
Yeah, I'd probably have mine framed on the wall somewhere. Yeah. When do you think you're going to start work on the second film?
I'm hoping by 2019. That's my goal. I want to spend the rest of this year.
So I got time to work on my acting skills. That's
We'll put you in character and get you dressed up and everything.
Awesome. Love it. What's the second film going to be about,
It's kind of like about my experience in Houston. It's not autobiographical in a way, but it's more about the rave scene and the dance music and the underground parties at that time.
Oh, good.
And
so my country ass will fit really well in the whole club music. It'll be great.
Definitely. But it's about, because Texas is really interesting, is that a lot of that stuff kind of took off, you know, and I remember going to a lot of underground parties in Dallas and Houston that are all over the place. It's changed now because I guess like EDM and everything's become very corporate, and it's become, you know, about Vegas pool parties and stuff like that. But my stories are more about what's going on like in Europe right now and other cities where the youth culture has kind of trying to seize it back against like the police state and things like that.
Oh, interesting. You know, I grew up in that type of music in that world when I lived in St. Louis once upon a time. There was a huge scene through there as well. It's interesting to watch because with that music comes a certain style of lifestyle and
Yeah.
you know, you're all in, you know, into that lifestyle. It's crazy. Sounds like it's been kind of a fun, crazy journey for you so far, and you've learned a lot of lessons along the way. What have your parents thought about this whole journey you've been on? Have they thought you were crazy? You know, have they tried to get you to come back home? You know, how's that been?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, my parents are immigrants, so, and I was born in the United States, and for them, their journey was just coming to America. It was very difficult, especially in the 70s.
Yeah.
So, you know, so for me, it was, you know, I had the privilege of kind of, I guess in a way, like kind of experiencing two cultures. And a lot of people in my family are creative, but they never had the opportunity to be once they came to the United States. They just had to kind of settle into the country and just, you know, just build, you know, especially if they had a family, they couldn't take any, you know, creative risk or license, but I had the opportunity to do that. And so for them, they didn't really quite understand it. But I think now as long as like, you know, able to feed myself and make a living, and they're fine with it now. They don't question it anymore like they used to.
Right. Where'd they come from in the 70s?
So they came from Taiwan, but my mom's from China.
Okay.
So, yeah, my background's Chinese.
Yeah, rough time in the 70s, man. Jeez.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. And, you know, do you follow Gary Vee at all? Gary Vaynerchuk?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. He talks about all the time is, you know, being an immigrant almost gives you the superpowers because another buddy of mine always says, you know, your story is your legacy, you know, and where you come from. So I love those stories. So, man, I totally appreciate you being on the show, man. This is very, very fun. Kind of a cool insight. I really am going to come hit you up to be an extra or, you know, I mean, if you want to pay me to be an actor, I'll pull it off.
Definitely.
So I really, really appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with you and they want to reach out, maybe they're aspiring to become a film director, producer, or maybe they're an aspiring actor, this, that, and the other. How do they reach out to you so they can say, hey, I want to be in the next film? Or when is your film coming out? They want to be able to go watch it, those type of things.
Yeah, I guess the easiest way is just to reach me on social media, and the account, it's under my film account is just at Rumour, RUMOUR FGC. So that's the easiest way. And that's across all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So yeah, awesome. The film is Rumour from Ground Control. So.
Awesome. And then I always like to end the shows this way is if you could give somebody a piece of advice and maybe a phrase that they could take with them for the rest of their journey, something that would empower them, something that would help them keep their mind right as they're going forward. Maybe they're getting stacked up some of the same issues you went through and those type of things. What would you tell them as they go about their journey, you know, as that phrase that they could carry with them?
This is one I kind of say often to people or just, you know, my wife and I, we talk about things. I always say, whatever people are doing in the 21st century, do the opposite.
Oh, wow. And why do you say that?
Well, I guess because if you really want to enjoy your life, you have to make the time to, in a way, buy back your time in a sense. Because if everyone's sitting in traffic, going to work, don't do that. Or everyone's going out on a Friday night to a nice dinner or restaurant or club. Don't do that. Go during happy hour. Go during Wednesday night, you know, because your time is important. Time's too precious to wait in line. So I say whatever people are doing in the 21st century, do the opposite. So people taking selfies, be private. Promote your business. Don't promote your selfies. You know, things of that sort. So that's what I kind of live by now. And I just find that like, you know, having that, it gives you more time to do the things that you really want to do.
Dude, that's awesome. Man, Seaton, thanks so much, brother, for being on the show. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a good time.
Thank you, Donnie. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Wow, that was just an awesome episode. What a freaking journey. Man, when you hear stuff like that, you just get goosebumps on the ride. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening to this episode. Please do me a favor, comment on it. Let this person know how much you value their story, their information. Please share this with your friends. It would mean everything to me.